Good morning, how we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit. Welcome back to another video. And today we're going to review not only a hand, but also the answers to the quiz that y'all gave about this hand specifically. Recently, we made a quiz just asking a very simple question: what would you do on the turn in this exact situation? So today we're going to look at the exact spot, we're going to talk about what y'all said you would do, and talk about what I think is the best action, and of course, why. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Now, the hand in question was sent in by Adrian. Adrian, thank you so much for sending this in. This is from 2 No Limit Zoom 6 Max on PokerStars. Hero is under the gun with ace queen off, opens to 3 big blinds, gets 3-bet by the button, cold call by the big blind, and Hero decides to call as well. The only real information we were given is this. Adrian says, I don't have any reliable HUD stats for these two players. I know the 3-bet against a non-steal for the average player around here is about 5%, and the button acted almost instantly on every street. So keep all that kind of stuff in mind as we go through. On the flop, Hero flops top pair, top kicker, check, check, c-bet by the button, Hero decides to call, turn is a brick 4, check, and Hero faces a pretty committing bet from the button. So at this point, the quiz just simply says, what would you do here? Would you go all in for another 59 cents? Would you call, or would you fold? So if you haven't already taken the quiz, take a moment, think about what you do, and then hit play when you're ready to rock and roll. Now, after getting about 1,300 responses for this exact spot, here's how the answers shook out. About 62% of y'all said you would go all in right this moment, so shove for another roughly 59 cents. 19% of y'all said you would call, and 19% of y'all said you would fold. Now, if we really think about what that means, really zoomed out, 81% of people said, yes, I'm going to continue in this situation. Because realistically, if you call 93 cents here, are you really ever going to fold on the river for another 59 cents? No, probably not. So what we really have is about 81% of people saying, yep, I'm going to continue here, and 19% of people saying, nope, I'm just going to say quit and fold right this moment. So looking at these quiz options, I would get rid of one option immediately, and that is just simply calling. I'm not going to call in this situation. I don't see any reason to think that calling is going to be better than just shoving ourselves if we do decide to continue. Simply because if we do decide to call here, is our opponent really going to shove his last 59 cents on the river with a bluff? Right? I don't think he's super incentivized to do that. Whereas if he has any amount of equity right now, any kind of draw, I think that they are more likely just to call it off here. Yes, we're still losing the same exact amount of money, whether they have aces or kings or any hand that smashes us, but more often than not, I don't see calling doing anything that going all in right this moment wouldn't do more profitably. So I'm going to get rid of calling altogether, and really my options are between going all in or just folding. Now, because this is pretty much a commitment situation, this is going to be extremely mathematical in the way that we can look at it and solve for it. So what we're going to use is Flopzilla to proof this. You could certainly use Equilab or Poker Cruncher if you have those. I just prefer Flopzilla for a little trick that I'll show you in a moment. And in this situation, if I back up one tick, here's how I kind of think about it. The power right now is $1.46. If we are going to shove, we're really putting the whole 152 effective in. So essentially, I'm getting about 2 to 1 on my money, and that's the way that I'm going to operate here. So essentially, the question is, do I have roughly a third equity? If yes, let's do this thing. If no, it might be time to consider giving folding a little bit more credence. So let's pull up Flopzilla and look at this real quick. So we have our hand over here in the dead cards. We have the board right here, and we're going to keep our attention down here in this little section because it's going to show us our hand's equity versus our opponent's range on this exact board. So what I might do in this situation is look at worst case scenario first. Let's say that our opponent only has exactly aces, kings, and queens. Actually, let's just get rid of queens for a moment and just see what it looks like here. So if our opponent only has kings plus when they take this line, right? Remember, pre-flop they 3-bet, we called, they c-bet the flop in a multi-way pot, so kings plus definitely makes sense. And then continuing on this 4, yes, kings plus definitely makes sense to take that line with here. So we notice that against that, our hand has 9% equity. Again, we need that to be much closer to a third because we're only getting roughly 2 to 1 on our money, and this is nowhere near 33. So because of that, if you truly believe that your opponent only has kings plus, then this is clearly a fold. So that's the way that you would start looking at this. Now, the way that I do this is I start saying, okay, what is worst case scenario? This is pretty well worst case scenario. And then what would happen if we add some other hands in there, other reasonable hands that could have gotten 3-bet, then c-bet, and then double barreled? Let's start by expanding this range out to include queens and also ace-king, but again, because we're starting pure worst case scenario and then getting a little bit better and a little bit better, a little bit better, let's not add full ace-king at this point. Let's just start by adding ace-king of clubs, because that's a very clear combo that our opponent would probably double barrel with in this situation. So let's take ace-king, and if you're using Flopzilla and you've never really used suit selection down here, then it's very simple. Right here we have the double clubs, click that, we hit apply, click the hand, and now it only includes ace-king of clubs exactly. So if we look at this, our equity does increase. Right now we're up to 13, but still nowhere near the 33 that we need. Now, what would happen if we added full ace-king? Well, if we add full ace-king, it's very easy to see, and mind you, this isn't even full, so actually let's just do full. Okay, so this is full. This is a 49% equity for us. So clearly, if we think that our opponent is shoving with sets of queens, kings plus, and ace-king, all of it, whether it's clubs or any other variant of it, we notice that we have a heap of equity and we would be absolutely silly to fold in this situation. So if you think full ace-king is in here, clearly this is a good thing for us, and that should be pretty obvious. Now, if we wanted to say, okay, we're only going to look at combinations that have a club in them for whatever reason we think that our opponent is going to block that way, then we can just apply. We can apply, and now you notice that that's going to shade us down, and now we're right back to roughly a break-even commit because we have 32% equity. We need about 33, so we're in the ballpark of break-even. Now you may ask yourself, okay, well that's cool, but how do I estimate this in real time? And honestly, the way that you do that is just through tons of off-table practice and repetition and starting to be able to eyeball and estimate this stuff as best as possible. And the other thing is to also just keep in mind that when you get to a point of break-even, and this is pretty much break-even, that if you add in any extra combo, does that favor you or not? So in this situation, if we were to expand ranges a little bit, and let's just say that we also included jacks in the 3-bet range preflop, 10s, which of course is going to beat us, and let's just say that we captured that and we added ace-queen suited. Right, so we noticed that if we add in all those combinations, even though we did add in sets and a chopper combo, the equity for our hand is 42%, and it would be absolutely goofy of us to fold here. So this is the way that I want you to start thinking about it, not just in terms of, oh, I have top pair, top kicker, this is confusing, what do I do? But think about what your opponent likely has. What is your equity against that in commitment situations? And would it be better or not to commit? Now, you kind of have to make an assumption here. Do you think that the button has a closer to worst case scenario range or a closer to best case scenario range? Clearly, we can come up with even better best case scenario ranges where our opponent has an even wider range and where our ace queen does even better against it. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, which range is the button likely using here, and which equity do we likely have when it comes to committing? Now, in order to talk about villain's range in the most linear and logical fashion possible, it probably makes the most amount of sense to start over from preflop. So here we have hero opening under the gun, totally standard, fine size, faces a 3-bet from the button, cold call from the big, and here we are. Again, we have no specific HUD stats on either of these players, but we do have a little bit of information. Adrian did say that the 3-bet against a non-steal for the average player around these limits is about 5%. Good information for us to know, but is it really going to be 5% against an under the gun open? I probably think it's probably a pinch lower than that on average. But the other crucial piece of information we have here is that villain on the button acted almost instantly on this street and also the others. So this is the kind of situation where I'm saying, okay, the button clearly has a plan here, and more likely than not, it probably means they like their hand. It's probably something pretty special. They're focused here, and that's why they're acting a little bit faster. So that's not really giving me a ton of information other than the fact that they've definitely decided to put attention and effort into this hand, and I'm not going to be shocked if it bends towards the stronger side of the spectrum, probably without a crazy amount of bluffs. So here decides to call here, and yes, calling is totally standard. I'm not going to say too much about it, but if you have any information on button, especially that they're the kind of person that would 3-bet ace-king, but are probably going to hate life and fold to a 4-bet with ace-king, this can become a very sexy option to consider 4-betting, but I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole. So we go here, flop top, pair top, kicker. Here decides to check, faces the c-bet. We do have to keep in mind that the button is c-betting in a multi-way pot, so I don't think this is going to be super airy. I'm suspecting this is going to be on the stronger side of the spectrum, but I do think that the average person at this limit is going to see ace-king as an overcard and gut shots, and maybe they can take it down as probably being a more default stab. I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked if I see that. So because of that, when we decide to call, I'm thinking that a lot of ace-king, if not all ace-king, is in the range, and here we see this bet from the button. Now the final bit of Adrian's write-up is this. Again, villain acted almost instantly on every street, and given the line and bet sizes he used, I put him on an overpair better and ended up folding a pretty strong holding. Do you think I was too nitty? So yes, I do think that it is far too nitty to fold here, and here's the thing. I 100% understand that this line screams strength. Yes, I understand that this bet size on the turn especially is very concerning, because I'll be totally honest, if villain had just shoved here, I think this is a super easy call, because I think it means that much more of the ace-king stuff is going to be in here, trying to bluff for the maximum pressure, and I think that my ace-queen performs even better. So when they only fire for roughly 2/3 pot, that is a little concerning. Why didn't they just shove the rest of it in if they're trying to get max fold equity with a bluff? That's definitely something that I'm focused on as well. But that being said, I still think that there can be ace-king in here. I still think there can be pocket jacks in here. I still think that if there is ever like ace-jack or king-jack that got a little frisky and 3-bet preflop, that is also in here as well. And again, every extra combo we realistically start adding into this range, our hand does better and better and better. I don't think that the button's going to have a tremendous amount of queen 10, if nothing else for combos, but I just think that the average person doesn't default 3-bet hands that get kind of that low preflop. Same thing with 10-8 suited, again, not a ton of combos of it either. So realistically, when we start adding extra combos here, we do better and better, and I think at this limit against an unknown, it is far more likely that they have some randomness, some silliness, some overvaluation of ace-king or something like that, that I think folding here is going to be far too nitty. Just in general, if I'm being totally honest, it kind of takes a crowbar to get me to start folding the top of my range. I need to have a lot of information. I need to have information that my opponent, when it comes to, okay, which way does their range likely bend, that is going to bend more nitty. At a random 2-no limit game, I'm not going to be able to make that assumption. If I lose a stack here, I lose a stack here. It is what it is. This is why we have a bankroll, so that we can weather storms like this. It happens. If you call in this exact situation, or again, get it all in and end up losing, it is what it is. But I think you'll be surprised, because our brains remember all the times we lose here and forget all the times that we win here. So do I think folding is too nitty here? Most certainly. I think getting it all in right this moment is infinitely better. So thank you very much to Adrian for sending this hand in, and thank you to everyone who participated in this quiz. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you like these kind of quizzes, please leave a comment down below. Let me know that you enjoy this kind of thing. Clearly the quizzes take a lot more time, have to make 2 videos, plus the quiz itself, so if you guys don't like them, I'd much rather save that time and use it on other things, but if you are enjoying it, I'd be happy to continue doing these things every so often. Again, thank you so much for being a part of this. If you are looking for your next step today, I would definitely suggest checking out the 6 Max hand reading workbook. It's going to be right up your alley if you're working on how to view the game technically, how to understand the hand reading process that I'm going through on a more automatic basis, and how you can start doing the same thing in your games. This kind of exercise is the stuff that I do on my own when I'm working on hand reading stuff and really trying to rebuild my ranges. It's going to be incredibly useful if you haven't already looked into it. Check it out today at splitsuit.com/6, and be sure to use the code YouTube to save $10 on any version that you choose to pick up. Again, thank you so much for hanging out today. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, as always, good luck out there and happy grinding.